Okay, good morning everyone. Again, this is your teacher Elaine for today. So this will be our part 2 or day 2 of our discussion regarding the importance of the English maritime. So as we all know that English is the essential or the universal language of the sea in the maritime industry. So the English is acting as a crucial lingua franca for the safety, operational efficiency, and professional growth in a multinational environment, preventing the catastrophic misunderstanding through standardized maritime English and standard marine communication phrases. So here is the English maritime. So it's here. It is the specialized or the simplified form of English used globally. So it also used in the shipping industry for the clear communication between the international crews, ensuring the safety and efficiency at the sea by using the standard terminology, fixed phrases, and the basic grammar to avoid the misunderstanding. So I have here some key roles of the English maritime. So first is the safety and the emergency response. So this is to enable the clear communication during the distress rescues and the critical situations, saving lives by ensuring the coordinated action. Another one is for the navigations and operations. So it facilitates the accurate exchange of the vital information like the positions, warnings, and orders between ships and ship to shore to avoid some dangerous errors. So we also have some international trade. So this one, the streamlines that globally commerce by providing a common language for port operations, logistics, and other business dealings. Then the next one is about the crew cohesions. So fosters between or better teamwork and understanding the among diverse multinational crews, improving the morale and preventing conflicts. And lastly, we have what we call the professional development. So it opened doors to the international training, advanced courses, and better career opportunities worldwide. So we have here the different standard or the standardization with the Maritime English and the SMCP. So first is the standardized phrase. So this is the uses of a specific terms for the ship to ship or ship to shore and international communication, eliminating the ambiguity found in everyday language. We also have some universal standard. So this one, it creates a common framework understood globally, bridging cultural and linguistic gaps on vessel. So the proficiency in the maritime is not just an advantage, so it also a fundamental necessity for anyone working at the sea, just to ensuring the safety, efficiency, and seamless global shipping. So this time, the English is the legal practical standard in the maritime industry that primarily for the safety reasons and because of its historical dominance as a global lingua franca, the IMO formally adopted the standardized version. So the SMCP, just to minimize the potentially fatal miscommunication among some multinational crews, or those are the multilingual crews. So we have to set some legal standard for the safety and the regulations. So the primary driver for the legal mandate is enhance the safety at the sea. So where the miscommunication has been signified, contributing the fact factor in a numerous accident. So first I have here is the IMO mandate. So the IMO designated an English as the international language of the sea in 1988 and formally adopted the SMCP as a standard in 2001. Then the International Convention, the use and understanding of English are mandatory requirements for the officer certification under the International Convention on the standards of their training, certification, and watchkeeping for the seafarers, or what we call the STCW. And then the International Convention for the Safety of Life at the Sea, the SOLAS, is also stipulates English for the ship-to-ship and ship-to-shore safety communications unless all parties shared another common language. And then lastly is the standardized phrase. So here the SMCP, it provides a simplified limited English vocabulary and a specific phrases for routing and emergency situations. So by this, they're going to eliminate it, the ambiguity. Like for example, instead of asking, can I enter the fairway? So the standard phrase is question, do I have a permission to enter the freeway? So those are the standard phrases. So English is also become the practical standard long before it was legally mandated due to the historical and commercial factors. So number one of that is the historical dominance. So the influence of the British Empire and the extension of the maritime trade network led to the widespread use of the English language and English law in the shipping worldwide. And then the other one is the global lingua franca. So English is naturally become the common language, or what we call the lingua franca, as shipping is a global phenomenon. So it is connecting to the individuals of many different nationalities and languages. So we also have here the multinational cruise. So the modern and the commercial vessels, they often have crews composed of the seafarers from the several different countries. A common language is essential for the internal communication, so the day-to-day operations and social interactions. And then the second one that we have is the clarity and the efficiency. So standardize the maritime English uses the precise terminology to avoid some confusion, such as using the port and starboard. So instead of the left and right. So this efficiency is communication is very critical for the navigations and the operational tasks. And then lastly, English law as a legal certainty is the dominant legal system for resolving maritime disputes globally due to its comprehensive body of case law and predictability. So, for the further enforcing the use of English in a associated administrative and legal matters. So, the multilingual crews without the common language, they faces a significant dangers. So, primarily communication breakdowns that lead to an increased risk of accidents and disasters. So, safety issues and negative impacts on the crew well-being. So this is a major concern in the industries like the international shipping, where up to 80% of the accidents are linked to human error that often due to a language barrier. And I have here some key standards. So first is about the safety hazards and accidents. So this is the most critical danger of the potential for a serious incidents, especially during the emergencies when quick and clear communication is very vital. And then the misunderstanding of orders, misinterpretation of the messages, or an inability to point out problems can lead to operational errors, equipment damage, and loss of life. Then the other one is the miscommunication. So language barriers foster some confusion, misinformation, and weak feedback loops during the work-related discussion. So even minor failures in communication can escalate in hazardous situations, leading to a poor decision making and a lack of shared situational awareness. Then the other one, another key danger is about the social isolation and conflicts. So this is now the social isolation and conflicts is the lack of a common language that can lead to social segregation on board. So as a crew member, it tends to form a friendship with those who share their first language. So this isolation can also trigger some problems such as the depression, mistrust, tension, and conflicts of all of the which hinder effective teamwork and a cohesive work environment. So still part of the key dangers in the impaired teamwork. So effective communication is also crucial for coordinating and team spirit. So without this, the crew members struggle to establish an effective teamwork, reducing some overall operational efficiency and creating a breeding ground for the errors. So the next one is about the training and performance issues. So the crew members with a limited proficiency in the designated working language, so they may struggle with the training materials, understanding instructions, and also performing their duties correctly. And then lastly is about the stress amplification. So the challenges that possessed by a language barriers, so they are often intensified by the existing human factors like stress and fatigue and further compromising the crew performance. So to address these dangers, the maritime industry has adopted some several strategies and some regulations. So they often are centered around establishing a common work language, usually English. So we have here some mitigating the risk. So first is the standardized language. So the international regulations like the STCW convention, so they required an effective communication be maintained on board ships and promote the use of the English. So the IMO has also developed the SMCP to facilitate the clear communication and clear situations. And then we have some training, and certification. So this one, it emphasized the place on improving some English proficiency through education and training programs. The certifications of competence becoming standard practice. And then the third one is the communication protocol. So it implementing the clear communication protocols such as the closed loop communication. So this is where the receiver repeat the message to confirm and understanding. And then we're going to encouraging some simple, clear, and help reduce the misunderstanding. And then the next one, or lastly, is what we call the cultural awareness training. So the educations on cultural differences, it also helps mitigate the stereotyping and misunderstanding that can arise from the diverse backgrounds. So the maritime safety and emergency communication, they are rely heavily on the global maritime distress and the safety system, or what we call the GMDSS. So the international framework using a satellites like the Inmarsat or the Iridium and the terrestrial radio, the VHF, HF, and DSC for automated distress like alerts, So we're going to ensuring some quick alerts to the rescue services and also the nearby vessels globally, supplemented by the standard marine communication. So I have some key components of this GMDSS. So but first, we have here what we call the digital selective calling or the DSC. So this is the automated distress alerts and calls on the VHF, MF, and HF bands that sending a coded messages with a location and ID. So this one, it also allows for a automatic direct dialing of the other vessels or shore stations, sending some coded messages with a location, air, or their identification, and alerts rescuers without constant speaker, monitoring a key component of the global maritime distress. And then the safety. So how this DSC works? So the digital signals. So instead of just a voice, the DSC sends digital coded messages. There are also some dedicated channel. So the VHF 70 or the VHF channel 70. So this is the receive for DSC calls with a dedicated receiver constantly listening. And then it also have some direct calls. So you can dial another vessel's unique maritime mobile service identity or their own MMSI number, similar to a phone call to get their attention. So it also sending some automated alerts. So the red distress button sends an automated and formatted alert with your vessel's identity and position to rescue authorities. And then lastly, the voice handoff. So after the digital alert or call, the DSC direct users to a specific voice channel. So this is for the immediate conversation. So we have here some primary functions of the DSC. So first is about the distress. So automatic alerts to the rescue services like the Coast Guards. And then the urgency or the safety. So the alerts for the less critical but important situations. Then they also have some routine calls. So this is initiating the contact with the other specific vessels or stations. And then lastly is the position request or report. So they're going to exchanging some GPS coordinates. So this one, the GD is it also, the importance of this is for the safety enhance. So it makes some faster, more efficient alerts for the distress. And then it also reduced the monitoring because the ship don't need to listen to a loudspeakers constantly. It's just the DSC that going to alerts them. And then the GMDSS, this is the essential for the modern maritime safety regulations, or usually the SOLAS Convention. So the DSC, it brings telephone-like selectivity and automation to the marine radio. So it also making some distress and routine communication for more reliable and effective. So again, the emergency position indicating radio beacon or what we call the EPIRB. So this is to transmit a distress alerts via satellite. So this is the device that automatically when activated, when that often with built-in GPS. So this is like a battery operated distress transmitter for boats sending the digital signal via satellite to alert arrest search and rescue and services. So how this EPIRB works or this device work? So first, of course, the activation. So this can be manually activated or automatically deployed by water. So to transmit when the vessel is sinking. And then there's also signal transmission. This is emits a powerful digital distress signal on the 406 megahertz to a satellite. And then the location of the EPIRB. So the location of the EPIRB or the modern EPIRBs with the GPS, it provides some instant, precise coordinates. Older models rely on the satellite triangulations. And then the homing signal. It also broadcasts a lower or power that only 121.5 megahertz signal for the final homing by the rescue aircraft. And then lastly is the alerting. So the signal is relayed the ground stations and then the rescue coordination centers starting the search. So another device that we have or equipment is the search and rescue transponders. So this one, it help locate the survival craft and rescue teams by responding the radar signals. So it's also a battery powered waterproof device used in a maritime emergency to help locate distress vessels or survival crafts by responding to radar signals from searching ships. So how these radar SARTs work? So this is the common type. For the common type of this equipment, so first you need the activations. So the SART is manually activated and placed on a life raft or survival craft. And then the detection, it listens for a 9 gigahertz radar pulse from searching vessel. And then how this equipment responds. So each receive a pulse triggers a sweep across the radar frequency band. So it's creating a series of 12 dots on the rescuer screen, leading from the SART's location to the edge of the screen. So we have some visual cue. So these dots from the distinctive line indicating the position of the distressed craft to the rescuers. So what are those key features of this equipment? So first is the battery life. So it must operate for at least 96 hours in standby and 8 hours in active transponding mode. So you should regarding the visibility, the brightly colored that usually orange, they uses orange for that for the quick visual spotting. And then the mandatory. It required by the GMDSS regulation for the most commercial vessels with a specific numbers based on the ship size. And then regarding the placement, so this one should be mounted as high as possible, that often on a telescopic pole to extend the radar range. Then the other device that we have or equipment is what we call the Navtex. So this is the navigational telex. So this provides an automatic reception of the maritime safety information or the MSI. So like the weather warnings and the navigational hazard and the coastal areas. So this is the international automated service for the broadcast of the receipts of the maritime safety information. So what are these functions of this Navtex? So first, this one, it provides some automatic delivery of the navigation warning, and, and then the weather forecast, gale warnings, search and rescue alerts, and other urgent safety related messages. And then typically it covers also radius of 200 to 400 nautical mile from the transmitting coastal station. And then the receptions of this device, the user also can provide receivers to filter out certain message types, like for example, the pilot service messages, but cannot filter mandatory messages like the navigational and gale warnings. And then another device still under the safety and emergency communication in the maritime is what we call the satellite system. So this is the Inmarsat, Iridium. So they are offer globally communication, including the distress alerts and the safety messaging. So here, the satellite system, this is the reliable global communication. So the voice, the data, or the emergency, that precise in the navigation. So it enhance the safety and the operational efficiency via technologies like the LEO, MEO, and the GEO networks. So they're transforming some shipping with the connectivity and data-driven decisions. So how do we apply this satellite system? So first is for the communication. It provides voice, email, and data connectivity globally, vital for the crew welfare, business operations, and the distress calls when far from the shore. And then we have some navigation and positioning. So this is the GPS that offers a pinpoint accuracy for the safe passage, obstacles, avoidance, and some efficiency or other alternative route. Then we also have some safety and security. So this it enables the real-time tracking, facilitates search and rescue coordinations, monitors the vessels for pollutions, and supports the port security system. Then it also apply for the weather and the environmental monitoring. So this one delivers the real-time weather data for the route optimization and monitors the ocean conditions. So it aiding the sustainability efforts. And then lastly is about the cargo and fleet management. So this is to track the container location and the status. So this one is improving the fuel efficiency and operations. So next is the types of satellite networks that we have. So we have here the GEO and LEO. So GEO is the geostationary Earth orbit. So this is the powerful fixed position satellites with the wide coverage, ideal for broad area communication. And then the second one is the LEO. So this is the what we call the low Earth orbit or the MEO, medium Earth orbit. So they are um, offer the lower latency with a constellation like Starlink and OneWeb competing with the traditional geo providers. So what are the benefits of this? The first benefits of this is to increase the efficiency. So data-driven operations and optimize routes. Another one is to improve the safety um, so for the better communications and the real-time monitoring, reduce risk. So another one is the crew welfare. So it's essential for connecting the seafarers with their family. And then lastly is the sustainability. So monitoring and managing the in environmental impact. So that will be all for our today's discussion. So that will be in our English Maritime course. So again, this is your instructor Elaine for your day 2 of the English Maritime course.